Hello. You know what's crazy? These people are out here whispering, side-eyeing, straight up panicking. Because you moved different. You didn't just pull a stunt. You violated reality, broke the simulation. Now they're sitting there stuck, looking at you like you're some kind of glitch in the matrix. You know what they're saying, right? Nah, that wasn't normal. That was some straight-up demon shit. Yeah, 'cause regular people, they crumble. You flipped. Let's keep it a buck. You didn't grow from peace. You grew from war, from nights where your chest felt like a locked box and no one answered when you screamed into the void, from people playing in your face while you were fighting your demons like it was a full-time job. You weren't healing. You were in the mud, in the dark, with no manual, piecing yourself together like a savage with nothing but rage and duct tape. And now look at you. Whole room goes silent when you walk in. Energy shifts. Folks get real humble when they see that look in your eyes. That I've been through some shit and I ain't scared of none of y'all. Stare. You didn't come out clean. You came out real. And that scares them more than any threat ever could. Because they can't figure you out. You ain't in their little categories. You ain't moving like someone with something to prove. You're moving like someone who already knows. They thought you were just gonna fall off, fold, disappear. But instead you disappeared and came back, feral, tapped in, switched on. No apologies, no warning labels. You didn't bounce back. You reinvented yourself on some villain origin arc type beat. And now everybody's uncomfortable. 'Cause they remember what they did. They remember ghosting you, laughing at you, counting you out. Now they gotta watch you glow up in a way they can't explain. You're not the same. You're colder, sharper. You move like someone who's already been through hell. And built a fucking Airbnb there. That ain't confidence. That's clarity. That's, I survived some shit I never talk about energy. That's, I'll walk away from everything and still sleep like a baby type vibe. And that's why they whisper. That's why they flinch when you speak direct. That's why they calling it demon shit. 'Cause to them, anybody who refuses to break must be possessed. Nah, fam. You're not possessed. You're just done. Done begging. Done shrinking. Done being loyal to people who couldn't spell reciprocate if you spotted them every letter. You've been quiet for too long, letting sense slide just to keep the peace. Now you're walking like a weapon. Polished, controlled, but ready to unleash hell if they get cute. They thought they broke you. But you were just charging up. Now, you're unpredictable, unbothered, and all that fake love. All those "you've changed" comments, let them fly. Damn right you changed. You upgraded. You downloaded the pain and turned it into precision. You took all those breakdowns and turned them into blueprints. Now you play chess in a room full of people still stuck on checkers. And you don't even gloat. You just smirk, because deep down, they know. They could never survive what you came through. They'd tap out halfway through your worst day. You kept showing up when your brain was screaming. You kept pushing when your soul felt like it was leaking. You didn't get better, you got smarter, harder, colder, and you kept receipts. Don't lie. You remember who switched up. You remember who looked you in the eye and still doubted you. You remember the silence, the fake check-ins, the "just wondering how you've been" texts. But you ain't here for revenge. You're here for dominance. You're here to take up space with your whole chest and let them choke on the audacity of your survival. They see you now, and they're uncomfortable. Good. Let them sit in that. Let them wrestle with the fact that you're not trying to be relatable anymore. You're not trying to blend in. You're not explaining your scars to people who haven't even earned access to your presence. You're not cold. You're calculated. You're not mean. You're measured. And if they think that's demon shit, let them think it. Let them call it whatever they need to sleep at night. Meanwhile, you'll be out here building, climbing, leveling up with zero fucks given. Because you earned this darkness. You owned it. You mastered it. Now it walks with you. And anyone that tries to test you, they're gonna find out real fast. This ain't normal. They don't even realize what you had to kill off just to become this version of you. Not people, parts of yourself. Old beliefs, soft expectations, the dumb hope that maybe, just maybe, they'd treat you right if you just held on a little longer. Nah, you learned the hard way. Ain't nobody coming to save you. Ain't no blueprint for the kind of storm you crawled through barefoot. You had to rip the comfort out your own hands and replace it with sharp instinct. That's what they're feeling when you enter the room, that charge in the air, like something's off. It is off. They're sensing that you're not operating on survival anymore. You're running on vengeance-coded clarity now, not the petty kind. Not, I'm gonna post a glow-up pic and hope they notice. Nah, you're on that, I'm building a reality so loud, they can't mute it energy. You wake up different, chest heavy, eyes sharp, not cause you're bitter, cause you remember everything. You move like someone who's done being walked over. You speak like someone who's tasted silence and decided your voice was too damn expensive to be wasted on people who never listened. You don't even argue anymore. You observe, they lie. You log it, they ghost. You archive it, they switch up. You take the hint and never circle back. You used to beg for closure. Now you shut doors yourself and bolt that bitch from the outside. The shift? It wasn't pretty. You weren't crying inspirational tears with violin music playing in the background. You were in your room, screaming into a pillow, wondering how the hell it all fell apart, staring at the wall at 2 a.m. like, is this really it? Is this how it ends? And then one day, you just stopped waiting for the pain to pass. You let it sit, let it sting, let it burn so deep you forgot who you were before it. That's when the demon work kicked in, not that Hollywood evil street. Real demon work, where you learn to smile while your soul's still bleeding, where you show up to life looking calm as hell, even though you got a whole battlefield happening inside your chest, where you put your hoodie up, your playlist on, and go handle it. Broken, bruised, and still unbothered. They don't get that part. They only see the aftermath, the silence, the smirk, the way you stand 10 toes down while everything else around you's shaking. They think you got lucky. They think you found some cheat code, but they ain't see you claw your way through guilt, through grief, through gaslighting that had you doubting your reality. They weren't there when you were doubting your worth, wondering if maybe they were right about you. Maybe you were too much, too intense, too broken, too angry. But that voice in your head, the one that sounded suspiciously like every hater and fake friend you ever had, you faced that voice, looked it dead in the eye and said, "Shut the fuck up. I'm not dying here." And you didn't. You resurrected on your own terms, without permission, without support, without clout. You didn't become cold. You became accurate. You see things now. You read people in seconds. One slip up and your whole body's screaming, "Don't trust that." And guess what? You don't. Not out of fear, out of wisdom. That's why they keep your name in their mouth. 'Cause you're moving like someone who ain't scared to burn the whole playbook and write your own rules in blood and instinct. You ain't waiting to be chosen anymore. You realized you are the table. Hell You built the table. From scraps in the dark. While nobody clapped. And now you eat different. Fork in one hand, middle finger in the other. You don't even flinch when people leave anymore. You're not out here begging for explanations, closure, or fake-ass goodbyes wrapped in polite lies. You just peep the switch up, go quiet, and vanish like you never existed. Because at this point, your piece got a body count, and you're fine with it. You used to overthink everything, replaying convos, analyzing tone, trying to figure out if you were the problem. These days, you get weird vibes and your whole system goes, yeah, we done here. No announcement, no drama, just straight exit. You don't care about being understood anymore. You don't need validation from people who wouldn't survive 5 minutes inside your head. You're past that. Too busy working in silence while everyone's still talking about potential and reposting quotes they don't live by. You move like a vault now. People think they know you, but what they really know is the version you let them see back when you were still nice with it. Back when you didn't clock the micro-shade, the half-smile, the low-key jab dressed like a joke. You catch it all now. Every slick comment, every weird flex, every fake "I'm proud of you," with jealousy dripping behind the teeth. You file it, you don't react, you just upgrade silently. And the silence? That's the scary part. 'Cause you used to react. You used to be loud, emotional, cracking, trying to explain your heart to people with empty hands. Now you're quiet, chilled out, calculated. Your detachment got power in it. When you stop explaining yourself, people feel it in their bones. You outgrew that whole be the bigger person era. Now you're the realest one in the room, and if that makes people uncomfortable, that's a them problem. You're done bending yourself into pretzel shapes to fit into circles that had no business containing you in the first place. You're not filtering your energy to make low-vibration people feel tall. You are the storm they thought was just rain. You've been through too much to pretend anymore. Too many fake friends, flaky support, checking in texts with bad energy underneath. You built your empire off of ghosted calls and nights where the silence was loud as hell. And you kept showing up. You kept pushing through your panic attacks like they were minor inconveniences, smiling with your jaw clenched, going to work, going to war, all while your insides were screaming. They didn't see you then, but they see you now, and that's why they're uncomfortable. 'Cause people love the version of you they can walk over, the soft one, the quiet one, the unsure one who waited for permission. But this one, this you don't wait, you take, you don't knock, you kick the door off the effing hinges, you don't ask for space, you own the room. You stopped asking, am I too much? You started wondering why they were all so damn small. And your energy, it got premium. You don't just give it away anymore. You protect it like it's sacred. 'Cause it is. You poured so much of yourself into people who didn't even have the decency to hold a cup. Now you pour back into you. You light your own fire. You clap for yourself. You don't care who's watching. This glow-up ain't for show. It's survival. It's rebirth. It's the result of bleeding behind closed doors and showing up like you slept fine. Your presence is pressure now. You walk in, and people adjust. They feel it in the air. That unspoken, untouchable, I've been through hell and walked out colder vibe. You didn't find peace. You earned it. And you'll burn anything that threatens it, even if it means walking away from everything you once thought you couldn't live without. You got real comfortable with cutting shit off mid-sentence. Convos, friendships, entire connections. You don't even announce it anymore. just that mental switch. Click, and it's over. No fight, no explanation, just, yeah. That energy felt off, and boom, they're archived. You're not cold. You're healed in a way they ain't ready for. You don't flinch at distance anymore. You don't chase, don't beg, don't double text. Your peace got security now, and every visitor gets patted down at the door. If their vibe's off by a decimal, access denied. People call it switching up. Truth is, this been in you. You were just too polite to show it. You used to tone it down, dim your light. Play it safe just to avoid that "you've changed" convo. But the new you ain't worried about keeping people comfortable in your presence anymore. You're not sugarcoating reality for folks still living in delusion. You see through people too fast now. That fake supportive tone, the weird competition energy, the subtle digs masked as jokes. You clock it all in real time, smiling, nodding, and mentally marking them as not safe. You ain't paranoid, you're just experienced. You learned the hard way. Just because someone claps doesn't mean they want you to win. You've had people hug you while hoping you fail. You've had friends who only pulled up when it was convenient. You've been that ride or die for people who wouldn't even walk for you. And you ain't mad about it anymore. You're just different now. You stopped entertaining weak links. You stopped watering fake flowers, hoping they'd bloom into something real. You let it all rot. And in that decay, you found you. You're not chasing peace anymore. You're enforcing it. You're protecting your energy like it pays your rent. You're pulling back your light from anyone who felt entitled to it. Because when you were breaking, they were busy watching. When you were silent, they were loud. And when you got up, dusted off your name, and started moving like you belong here, suddenly they noticed. You stopped needing crowds to feel valid. You started moving with that solo aura, walking like your presence is your resume. They ask, what do you do? And you just exist harder than everyone in the room. You built yourself in the shadows, in chaos, in trauma you never asked for but had to survive anyway. And that's what makes you dangerous. Not 'cause you're mean, not 'cause you're evil, but because you've made peace with every part of you they tried to break. You're not trying to fit in anymore. You're done begging for space at tables built on ego and fake smiles. You're flipping the whole table and building a new one where truth don't need translation, where silence ain't awkward, it's respected, where real ones feel at home and snakes feel exposed. You walk different now, slower, heavier, like every step got history in it. You don't rush conversations. You watch, you listen, you read every twitch in their face, every shift in their tone. You move like you know betrayal personally, 'cause you do. You're not scared to be the bad guy in someone else's story. If protecting your peace makes you the villain in their weak-ass narrative, hand you the cape and the soundtrack. You ain't here to be understood. You're here to be respected. Respected by your boundaries, by your silence, by the fact that you refuse to shrink again just to keep the peace in a war zone built by cowards. You're the type that walks in and changes the temperature without saying a word. People feel it, they get nervous, start second-guessing themselves, fixing their posture, watching what they say, like your presence triggers something they ain't ready to face. And it does, because you stopped performing. You stopped being on for people who never even knew the real you. They used to love you when you were soft, agreeable, easy to digest, when you kept your thoughts inside and smiled through the disrespect. They were cool with that version, the one that didn't clap back, didn't walk away, didn't choose themselves. But once you did, Once you switched lanes and started living like your peace mattered, you became the problem. You ain't even aggressive. You're just direct. You ain't mean. You're just done lying. You ain't angry. You're just not bottling shit up anymore for the comfort of people who weaponized your silence. You realized not every loss is a loss. Sometimes you lose dead weight and gain clarity. Sometimes the people you lose are the blessing, people you thought were real until you watched them switch sides without hesitation. People who used to call you family, but disappeared the second you needed a lifeline. You remember that shit, not out of spite, out of awareness. 'Cause nothing humbles a soul like remembering who went ghost when the fire got close. You took those moments and turned them into fuel. You stacked every betrayal like bricks and built your own sanctuary. The type no one can access without a vibe check, a background scan, and a gut-feeling green light. You don't even want revenge anymore. You want distance, silence, that unbothered space where your phone's dry, your heart's light, and your circle's so tight it's a dot. That place where your peace is louder than your past, and your future ain't built on shaky hands. You used to vent, explain, break down your soul just to be heard. Now you just fall back and watch. You let people show you who they are. No more excuses. No more giving people passes for the shit they meant to do. You got standards now, and not the cute ones. The type that say, I don't care how long we've known each other, if your energy's off, you can go. The type that make people say you're difficult, when really, you just got tired of being disrespected in subtle ways. You love harder now, but smarter. Your loyalty's still deep, but it ain't blind. You still give chances, but never the same one twice. Because once you peep the pattern, you don't ignore it, you exit. You outgrew the fantasy of who people could be. You started seeing them for who they are. And once your eyes adjusted to the truth, it was game over. You stopped falling for potential, like it was proof. Used to be, you'd hold on to who someone could be, ignoring every red flag, screaming, this ain't it. You'd bet on their growth, bet on the love, bet on the idea of loyalty, and lose every damn time. You got tired of bleeding out for people who never even brought a bandage. Tired of pouring into cups that had holes they refused to fix. Tired of carrying dead weight while they bragged about walking beside you like equals. You don't do maybes anymore. You don't do almost. You don't do the emotional gymnastics just to make chaos feel like connection. You want real, or you want nothing, solid or step. And if that makes you look cold, good. They should feel the chill when they bring half-assed energy into your space. You used to make yourself smaller for people with fragile egos, downplayed your wins, dimmed your shine. Put yourself last just to avoid making people insecure around your greatness. But you're done apologizing for your intensity. You're done acting like your power is something to be managed. You walk in rooms now and own the air. You don't ask if your presence is too much. You know it is, and you don't care. You used to need people. Needed the validation, the check-ins, the fake, I'm here for you. Texts that dried up when shit got real. You outgrew all that. You became the person you needed. You turned your breakdowns into blueprints, your rock bottoms into launch pads, your silence into strategy. You got used to doing shit solo, used to the grind, the loneliness, the nights where it's just you, your thoughts, and the echo of keep fucking going. Nobody clapped, nobody posted, nobody checked in, but you still showed up, bleeding, bruised, dragging your soul behind you like luggage. But you showed up. And now you move like a storm wrapped in calm. Your peace and chaos at the same time. unpredictable in the most controlled way. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be remembered. You're not chasing approval. You're chasing alignment. And anything that moves funny gets cut, quick, clean, and without warning. You look at the world different now. Conversations hit different. Vibes either flow or they drain. You feel everything, deep. You read energy like it's body language. One off look, one fake laugh, one weird pause. Your whole system starts buzzing like, nah, this ain't safe. And you listen to it. You trust your gut like gospel. People don't get it. They think you're paranoid, guarded, dramatic. But they weren't there, were they? Well, well, well. Look who finally showed up to their own damn story. You, the punchline, the underdog, the forgotten, the one they swore would stay stuck in the background, silent, obedient, tucked neatly behind the chaos. And then, boom, one night, one move, and everything detonated. Tell me something. Where were they when it was ugly, when it was cold, when the weight of the world sat on your chest like a brick and no one even texted to check if you were breathing? Where were their loud-ass voices when your name was getting dragged through the dirt like it was nothing? When your silence was screaming louder than their fake-ass support ever could? You remember it. The nights you prayed for a break but woke up to another war? The days you smiled while bleeding out inside, 'cause you knew showing pain would only feed their egos. You stood there with that fake-ass laugh, that "I'm good" lie, that tired, dead look in your eyes that nobody really clocked. 'Cause to them, you were just background noise. But then, somebody did something they weren't supposed to do. Somebody flipped the script. Somebody stood the fuck up. For you. Real talk. Who the fuck does that in this world anymore? People don't do that shut unless they're crazy, unless they see something in you that no one else has the guts to admit. Not because it's easy, but because it's right. That moment hit different, didn't it? You weren't supposed to matter, but out of nowhere, somebody lit a match in your name, put their chest out when your back was against the Efkin wall, took a hit, risked it all, burned the bridge, fought the crowd. Not 'cause you begged, but 'cause they saw what you forgot. That you're not some background extra in their story. You're the chaos. You're the storm. You're the whole damn plot twist. You ever seen the room switch up on you? One second it's whispers and fake smiles. Next second, dead silence. Eyes wide, mouths shut. 'Cause the one they overlooked just got chosen. You weren't supposed to be defended. You were supposed to break. They were counting on you being too damn tired to fight back. They were betting on you staying silent, small, scared. But guess what? You woke the up. Now the same people who let your name rot in conversations you weren't invited to. They're pacing, they're nervous, 'cause they realized they miscalculated. They thought no one gave a shit about you. But someone did. Someone threw a wrench in the machine, and suddenly, shit went from 0 to nuked. Overnight, that little fantasy world where you stayed beneath them. Gone, burned, obliterated in the fire someone else lit in your name. And maybe, just maybe, that fire's not stopping. Because here's the sickest part of it all. The second someone stood up for you, you started remembering who you were. Not the watered-down version you play for approval. Not the boxed-up version that keeps the peace. I'm talking about the you they were scared would wake up. The you that talks different when you're not tired. The you that doesn't wait for permission anymore. You ain't broken, you're building. You're stacking all that pain into ammo. You're turning every fuck you into fuel. You didn't need someone to save you. You needed someone to remind you you're worth going to war for. And now you've tasted what that feels like. Now you've seen that your name ain't dirt. That somebody, just one crazy motherfucker, saw value in you when the world looked away. That shit changes you. You don't go back to being silent after that. You don't return to the effing shadows, because now you carry that rage different. You walk like someone who knows they were underestimated. You move like someone who remembers every effing time they were left out, left behind, left bleeding. You start feeling it in your chest first. Not pride, not hope. Something heavier, like pressure, like vengeance with nowhere to go. Because once that switch flips, once you realize someone chose you in a world that's constantly throwing you away, you don't go back to pretending you're invisible. You don't shrink anymore just to make everyone else comfortable. You stop apologizing for walking with your head up. That silence that used to choke you out, you fill it with presence. People start adjusting their tone when you walk in, not because you're loud, but because your energy ain't soft anymore. And it's not just the people who doubted you that feel the shift. It's you. You start remembering shit they trained you to forget. Like how many times you held your tongue when you should have snapped. How many rooms you sat in, dumbing yourself down because you thought surviving meant blending in. But now you've seen what it's like when someone throws their whole chest into the fire for you. You've seen someone call out the bullshit while everyone else stayed quiet. And that kind of love, that kind of loyalty, it doesn't just heal, it wakes something. Because when the world teaches you to expect betrayal, loyalty hits like violence. It's disorienting. You're sitting there like, wait, hold up. Someone actually stood for me? Like actually risked something? They didn't whisper your name in secret. They said that SHT loud. They said, yeah, I'm with them. When it was dangerous to say it. And that's what cracked the sky open. Not the gesture, not the drama. It was the timing. They stood up when it cost them something. Not when it was trendy, not when you were winning, but when your name was getting spit on, when people were weaponizing your silence, your mistakes, your past. That's when they said, nah, fuck that. You're not doing this to them. And that one act, it started shifting you. 'Cause you realized maybe you ain't as disposable as they made you feel. You've been bleeding loyalty for people who wouldn't even flinch if you vanished. You've been giving chances to ghosts, breaking your back for folks who'd step right over your body if it meant getting a selfie with the next big thing. But now, you've seen the blueprint. You've seen what real shit actually looks like. It ain't sweet. It ain't always soft. It ain't performative. It's ugly, raw, violent if it has to be. It says, if you come for them, you come through me first. And that kind of energy, it rewires your whole nervous system. You stop chasing half-hearted apologies and start demanding full-throttle presence. You stop giving access to people who never earned your scars. You stop letting folks pull up with empty hands and full expectations. Because once you've been defended like that, once someone stood up for you when it counted, you stop settling for cowards in fancy packaging. You stop confusing neutral for safe. You stop calling silence peace, and you carry that fire different, not as a weapon, as a standard. And that standard, it starts bleeding into everything, how you walk, how you speak, how you don't flinch anymore when someone tries to test you. 'Cause the old you, the one they used to punk, the one that took disrespect on the chin and smiled through it, that version got buried the moment someone proved you were worth fighting for. You remember what that felt like, right? That first second where you froze, confused, shocked. 'cause your brain couldn't process it. You were so used to abandonment that when someone stood tall in your name, you questioned it like it was a trap. You didn't even believe it was real. That's what pain does. It rewires your expectations till real love looks suspicious, loyalty feels dangerous, kindness makes you flinch. And that's why this shit hits so hard, 'cause it didn't just change how you see them, it changed how you see you. You started holding your chin higher, started setting boundaries that don't require explanations. You cut ties without the guilt trip, walked away from table scraps they used to convince you were full-course meals. You stopped begging for people to understand you. You realized that being misunderstood in a fake world is a compliment. You let the bridges burn. Not for drama, but for clarity, because you saw it. When shit got real, they didn't flinch for you. But someone else did. Someone who wasn't supposed to. Someone who wasn't in the script. And just like that, the whole plot fell apart. And you're not standing in that same skin anymore. You're walking like someone who knows the value of being chosen when it wasn't convenient. You ain't thirsty for attention. You're starving for authenticity. You crave that raw shit. The I got you energy that don't need an announcement. The kind that shows up when the room goes cold. The kind that doesn't blink when your name's in the crosshairs. You remember the fake ones too, don't you? All the people who used to laugh with you till it stopped being funny. The ones who dipped the second the gossip started. The ones who said, "I'm here for you," but ghosted when it got messy. And you're not angry anymore. You're just not blind. You finally see that silence speaks louder than support ever will. That who doesn't show up is often louder than who does. And that one person who did step up, they broke a curse without even knowing it. They reminded you that you're not too much, that your pain ain't imaginary, that your name still carries weight, even if the crowd tried to forget it. And that energy, it sticks with you. It becomes armor. It becomes the blueprint for how you move from here on out. You feel it in your chest every time someone tries to gaslight you with, "It wasn't that deep." Every time someone plays dumb like they didn't see the knives in your back. Every time they try to spin the story like you were the problem, like your reaction was the issue. Not their betrayal, not their cowardice, but your silence ain't weak anymore. It's strategic. Your peace ain't passive. It's a declaration. And the second you stopped explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you felt free in a way that scared them. Because you started moving like someone who doesn't need a crowd to feel seen. You became your own evidence. You stopped needing witnesses. And the moment you stopped needing witnesses, that's when the whole room got uncomfortable. Because people don't know what to do with someone who ain't begging for validation anymore. Someone who doesn't flinch at being the villain in their little group chat stories. Someone who can sit in the silence knowing damn well that being misunderstood is better than being manipulated. They're used to you folding, used to you over-explaining, over-apologizing, trying to soften the edges just to keep the peace that never included you anyway. But now, you've seen what real ones do. You've felt the weight of being backed, not just with words, but with actions. You felt that shift the second someone threw hands metaphorically, or maybe literally, for your name. Not because they were bored, not for clout, but because they looked at you and said, "Fuck that." They deserve better. That shit rewires your entire nervous system. You stop begging to be included. You start curating access. You stop chasing proximity to people who made you feel like a burden. Because once you've been chosen like that, raw, flawed, bleeding, real, You realize you never needed a crowd. You needed clarity. You needed one person, one moment, one explosion to remind you that silence ain't always safe and loyalty ain't quiet. You start treating your energy like currency because you paid the price for being too available. You overextended. You poured into hands that had holes in them. But the day someone caught you mid-fall and stood 10 toes in front of you, you learned, painfully, beautifully, that presence is louder than promises, that "I got you" means nothing unless it shows up when shit hits the fan, that love that flinches under pressure isn't love, it's theater, and you're done being part of anybody's little performance. You're done clapping for people who wouldn't even show up to your funeral. You're done sugarcoating your rage just to keep the peace for cowards. You walk different now. 'Cause you've been witnessed, not in your highlight reel, but in your chaos. And someone stayed, someone stood, when they weren't supposed to, when everybody else dipped, when it was dangerous to be near you. And that one act, it shifted your soul. Because it wasn't about being rescued. You never needed saving. You just needed reminding of who you really are when you're not filtering yourself for people too small to hold your truth. You're done with filtered survival. You're moving in raw, unedited reality now. You've tasted what it feels like to be backed, and now you're starving for that level of real everywhere you go. Anything less feels fake, feels plastic, feels off. You're watching people with a sharper lens. You're catching fake loyalty in high def. You're clocking the ones who post you but don't protect you. The ones who check in after the smoke clears just to say they did. The ones who only love the cleaned up version of you, but disappear when your grief shows up unannounced. And you're not angry anymore, but you are done. Done shrinking to be digestible. Done bleeding to prove you're worth something. Done handing out explanations like your pain needs a permission slip. You're moving like someone who survived the war and built their own army from the ashes. And that army, it ain't made of pretty words and Instagram captions. It's made of scars, real ones, the kind that still burn when the weather shifts. The kind you stopped hiding, 'cause they're not signs of weakness. They're proof that you didn't die when they left. You remember that look in the mirror before all this cracked open? The one where your eyes were there, but you weren't. The version of you that kept swallowing pain with a smile, thinking silence was strength. You remember how tired your soul felt, trying to earn respect from people who couldn't even respect themselves, fighting for seats at tables you should have flipped, laughing at jokes that killed your spirit just to avoid the awkward tension. You were shrinking for scraps and calling it love. But when that one person stepped in and stood tall for you, without warning, without condition, it made all those fake connections feel hollow. That's when your standard changed, not out of ego, out of survival. You realized if someone can stand for you when it's ugly, you don't need to keep bending for the ones who only love you when it's convenient. You stopped replying to the half-assed check-ins. You started feeling the weight behind words like, "I'm proud of you," and noticing when people say it with their chest versus just their mouth. You started measuring love in actions, not aesthetics, and it changed everything. 'Cause loyalty that shows up late is just regret, and you're not someone's afterthought anymore. You're not the backup plan. You're not the just in case. You're the storm they weren't ready for. And you're not apologizing for being too much when they were always just too little. That edge you've got now, it's not bitterness, it's awareness. You're clocking the patterns, You're noticing who only shows up when you're useful, who only asks about your healing when they need to know how soon you'll bounce back and be convenient again. But you're not on that timeline anymore. You're not rushing to be okay. You're not performing resilience for people who watched you bleed and said nothing. You're moving like someone who's been broken in public and rebuilt in private. You're not explaining your boundaries. You're enforcing them. You're not warning people anymore. You're letting the silence speak. You've outgrown the need to prove anything. 'Cause once you've been defended like that, once someone risked everything to say, nah, you're not doing this to them, you stop fucking with people who need to be convinced that you're worth standing for. Your circle gets smaller, tighter, deadlier. Not 'cause you're scared, but because your peace is finally non-negotiable. You don't argue with people committed to misunderstanding you. You don't beg for closeness. You don't chase half-hearts. You walk. And if someone wants in, they meet you where the fire is, unfiltered, unpolished, unapologetic. You've already been through hell. And the wildest part, you never needed saving. You just needed witnessing. And the second that happened, the second someone really saw you and still chose you, you became the kind of dangerous that makes cowards nervous. And that kind of dangerous, it ain't loud. It's not some over-the-top performance or rage for show type shit. It's quiet, heavy. It's that stillness that makes the room go tense, 'cause everyone can feel it. You're not the same anymore. They can sense the shift even if they can't explain it. Your energy walks in 10 minutes before you do. Not cocky, not theatrical, just unapologetically present. Like you don't owe anybody softness they haven't earned. Like your kindness has a lock on it now. And the code changes daily. You stopped offering front row seats to people who clapped when you lost. You don't lace your voice with sugar just to keep the peace in rooms that never offered you protection. You speak different now, slow, intentional, with that edge of, I've bled for shit you'd fold over. That's what scares them, because they don't know how to control someone who doesn't crave their approval. They don't know how to guilt trip someone who's not scared of being alone. You sat with the silence so long it turned into your sanctuary. You made peace with being the villain in their stories, 'cause you finally got honest about who they were in yours. And deep down, you remember everything. You remember who looked away when shit got ugly, who changed the subject when your pain came up, who gave you that lukewarm support dressed up in spiritual bypassing, who weaponized your healing against you the second you stopped being easy to manipulate. You're not carrying that out of bitterness. You're carrying it as data. Receipts, lessons, coordinates. You know who's real and who's just real convenient. Who's solid and who just says the right things. And that list? It got short as fuck. Because after someone stood in front of the fire for you, without a script, without a camera, without needing anything in return, your standard became blood level. You don't need people who kinda love you. You don't need folks who love you as long as you don't disrupt the vibe, as long as you don't bring up what hurt, as long as you stay small, quiet, agreeable. You need ride or die energy or nothing at all. You need people who show up when there's nothing to gain. People who don't just tolerate your darkness, they honor it. People who understand that your sharpness isn't a flaw, it's survival. That your fire isn't too much. It's the only reason you made it this far. You're not asking for perfection. You're just done accepting cowardice dressed as peace. And that's why you walk with that silent fury. Not to scare people. To remind yourself that you're not going back. Not to those watered-down relationships. Not to those lukewarm rooms where your name was always up for debate. Not to that shape-shifting version of you who kept editing themselves just to stay lovable. You're done editing. You're done overthinking. You're done asking, did I go too far? 'Cause someone already showed you what too far really looks like. They stood up for you when it cost them something. You're not carrying that moment like it's a favor. You're carrying it like it's an awakening. It cracked your ribs open and reminded you you're not invisible. Hey, you. Yeah, you, the one sitting there wondering if anybody would ever show up for you when the bullets start flying. Let me ask you something. How long have you been bleeding? Quietly, huh? How many nights have you stared at the ceiling with fists clenched, replaying every moment they left you on red, every time they watched you drown and whispered, "You'll be fine"? You've been alone so long, you started to think that's just your default setting. Trust issues? Nah, that's not paranoia, that's data. You got receipts, real ones, from when you were there for everyone else, but when the war drums started pounding, crickets, silence, shadows, and yet, last night, something shifted. You felt it. You know you felt it. A chill in your spine, like the universe paused and whispered, somebody just threw hands for you, out of nowhere, not for clout, not to get something out of it, not because they were told to, but because they looked at your name and said, "Nah, you're not touching them, not on my watch. Let that sink in." While you were busy building walls, someone else saw what was inside them. They saw your fight, your broken pieces, your rage, your loyalty, your pain, your silent damn war. And they stood up, not beside you, for you. They picked up a sword you thought no one would ever even glance at. They said, "If they're going down, I'm going down swinging first." They showed up in a way you didn't even believe was real anymore. That's not just rare. That's not just loyalty. That's wartime energy. And in this world, that's sacred, because let's be honest, you've seen fake loyalty up close. People smile in your face, then sell your name in group chats for likes. You've had friends clap when you're bleeding out because your fall made them feel taller. You've had love that only loved the version of you that didn't ask for anything back. So when someone shows up with real armor, when someone steps into the fire with no hesitation, you feel it in your chest like thunder. And it messes with your head, doesn't it? Because you didn't think you were the one worth saving. You were the fixer, the forgiver, the one who carried other people's dead weight like it was your job. You didn't expect anyone to lift yours. You didn't even know what it felt like. But now you do. And now it's your move. You're gonna play it small again. Gonna go back to hiding your worth in apologies and overthinking. Gonna keep shrinking so you don't make the cowards around you uncomfortable? Hell no. You don't sit down after someone went to war for you. You rise. You rise with the fire in your chest that says, "I was never weak. I was just unseen." You rise with that dark, loud, chaotic, unapologetic version of yourself that doesn't give a damn about who can't handle it. Because the second someone fought for you, they gave you permission to stop begging to exist. That old you, the one who kept quiet to survive, bury them. Today, you become the weapon. You become the one who walks into a room and doesn't flinch anymore. The one who doesn't explain their scars. The one who knows somebody saw your worth and said, "I'd rather burn than let you be betrayed again." So now, you don't just survive, you dominate. You become the kind of force people don't forget. Because you carry the weight of the battles you've endured. And now, The proof that someone saw it all and still said, they're worth fighting for. This world wants you numb, wants you distracted, wants you to think that you're just a replaceable piece in someone else's game. But last night, the game flipped. The map redrew itself. The entire story shifted. You're not invisible anymore. And now that you know what it feels like to be protected, you owe it to yourself to never lower your standards again. Not for kinda, not for almost, not for sometimes, only for ride or die, only for, I'll swing first if they talk sideways about you. You're not built for soft betrayals anymore. You're not built for the back seat anymore. You're not built for tolerating ghosts in human skin anymore. You're war-blooded now, and someone just proved you were never fighting alone. So stand the fuck up. And don't say thank you. Say, I'm not going back. Because once that line has been crossed, once someone chooses to bleed for you, you don't get to unsee that. It rewires you, messes with your blueprint, starts ripping down all those rusted fences you built to keep yourself safe. And yeah, it's uncomfortable. Trust doesn't just slide back in like nothing ever happened. It drags its feet, it panics, it second-guesses every damn thing. You start asking, why me? What's their angle? Is this a setup? Because your whole life has trained you to brace for betrayal. But that moment, that freak moment where someone didn't just stand by you, they stood in front of you. That's where the healing starts looking like chaos. Because real loyalty doesn't whisper. It kicks doors in, and when it does, you either level up or you rot in the same mindset that told you no one would ever ride for you. They didn't fight for the fake version of you, not the polite mask, not the I'm fine script, not the watered-down version you showed people to keep from being too much. They fought for the unfiltered, loud, messy, brilliant, scarred-up version that even you were scared of. And that should scare the fuck out of you. Because that means you've been shrinking for no reason. All this time, you've been starving for validation, bending yourself backwards in rooms that never deserved you, just to feel seen. And now, someone looked at your chaos and called it worth protecting. Didn't flinch, didn't hesitate, didn't need an audience, they just did it. What are you gonna do with that? Not owe them, not worship them, but reflect it, multiply it, evolve from it. Because this ain't about praise, it's about power. Your power. The kind you forgot was yours. The kind that wakes up real ugly after years of suppression, and it doesn't come back wearing silk. It comes back with blood under its nails. You've been out here fighting quiet wars while everyone else played pretend. But now the silence is broken. Now someone stood on your behalf, with fire in their eyes and danger in their voice. And that means something changed, not just in your story, but in you. That fire they lit. You don't douse it with doubt. You feed it with clarity, with boundaries so high they scrape the clouds, with standards so sharp they cut through every half-ass excuse and fake connection, with the kind of presence that doesn't ask for respect. It demands it just by walking in. You stop apologizing for the energy you carry. You stop negotiating your worth with people who only show up when it's convenient. You stop begging for crumbs from tables you could flip with a single glance. Because when somebody's willing to fight for you in the dark, that means your light's not invisible anymore. It means your impact is loud. Louder than the lies they told you. Louder than the silence that used to choke you. Louder than your doubts, your mistakes, your worst nights. They didn't stand up because you were perfect. They stood up because you were real. And in a world this plastic, real's revolutionary. You spent years thinking your pain disqualified you, that your scars made you less. But what if they were the proof? The receipt that says, I've been through fire. I didn't fold, and now, I'm not just alive, I'm undeniable. The ones who know your war and still choose you, those are the ones who activate your rebirth. Not with gentle affirmations, but with action that screams, you're not crazy. You're not weak. You're not too much. You were just surrounded by the wrong people. And suddenly, you can breathe. Not because everything's healed, but because you're not pretending anymore. Not performing, not compressing yourself into a shape they'll accept. You start to walk like someone who remembers who the hell they are, remembers what they bring to the table, remembers what they survived, and who stepped in when no one else did. You start to feel it in your posture. That subtle shift. Not arrogance, not ego. Just the quiet knowing that you're done begging to be understood. Because when someone goes to war for you, it exposes just how long you've been settling for crumbs, calling it love, calling it loyalty, convincing yourself that being tolerated was some kind of win. You've been the one over-explaining, trying to make people see your heart while they were busy studying your weaknesses, waiting to use your truth as a weapon, your softness as an entry point, your silence as a green light. But that era, it cracked open the moment someone said your name in a room full of people who only wanted to forget it. They didn't flinch. They didn't switch up. They didn't wait to see if it benefited them. They just moved like a weapon. And you were the reason. That hits different, because it makes you start questioning everything that came before. All the fake love, the half-assed support, the I got yous that evaporated the second shit got messy. You remember who went ghost when the pressure hit, who switched sides, who laughed at your struggle when it wasn't trending anymore. And that contrast, it burns. Because this person didn't just support you, they chose violence on your behalf. They said, talk crazy about them one more time. Watch what happens. That kind of energy isn't just rare, it's soul-altering. It makes you walk into rooms differently. Not with your fists up, not paranoid, but with that silent edge like, I'm not alone anymore, and I never was weak, I was just unprotected. You stop answering texts from people who only hit you up when they're bored. You stop entertaining fake conversations that circle around nothing but drain everything. You stop making space for people who wouldn't even whisper your name when the wolves came sniffing. That loyalty you got, it's a mirror. It reflects all the realness you buried just to survive around frauds. All the love you gave freely that got dissected and picked apart. All the energy you wasted on people who couldn't even spell reciprocity. And here comes someone. Not loud, not performative, just real. Standing 10 toes down when your name was on the chopping block. No cameras, no praise, no reposts. Just pure principle. It reminds you that your story isn't just trauma and scars. It's resilience. It's fire. It's that underground legacy built in silence that only real ones recognize. And this one, they recognized it. They looked at your damage and saw art. They saw power. They saw someone who's been through the type of S8 that would have folded anyone else. But you're still standing, still fighting, still dangerous. This ain't about getting soft now. This ain't about waiting for more saviors. This is where you re-enter the world like a storm, not asking for space, but reclaiming it. They lit the match, but you're the explosion. And from here on out, you don't just speak with conviction. You carry weight. You carry that energy that says, I'm not what I went through, I'm what survived it. You move with the kind of presence that can't be faked, can't be replicated, can't be watered down for mass consumption. You're not palatable. You're not safe. You're not here to make people comfortable anymore. Because somebody finally saw what you really are. And they didn't just say it, they fought for it. And that kind of validation, not from the crowd, but from the front lines. It doesn't just touch you, it changes you. Because when someone risks being the villain in someone else's story to defend yours, you stop needing applause. You stop chasing closure. You stop explaining your intentions to people who only ever saw you as a plot twist in their drama. You start to realize how many rooms you stayed quiet in just to keep the peace, when in reality, that silence was a slow suicide of your identity. You were never too much. You were surrounded by people way too little. And when someone finally sees you at your most unpolished, the parts you blurred out to avoid judgment, and still goes to war with your name in their mouth like it's sacred, that's when the mask you've been wearing doesn't fit anymore. You can't go back to playing nice. Can't go back to shrinking just to be digestible. Can't go back to questioning whether or not you're worthy of protection. You were worthy before they stood up, but their action, it just exposed the lie you've been sold, that real ones don't exist anymore, because they do. And one of them just put themselves in the crossfire to prove it. That moment strips everything fake out of your life. You start replaying conversations, remembering every friend who disappeared the second you stopped being useful, every supporter who went mute the second your name got messy, every ride or die who hit the eject button the second the ride got bumpy. And then you compare it to this one act, this one moment, where someone didn't need a reason, a reward, or a spotlight. They just saw your value and said, "You're not taking shots at them unless you go through me first." You don't forget that. Not in this lifetime, not in any universe. Because that wasn't just an action. It was a message, a declaration. It said, "You're not alone. Not anymore. And you never deserved to be in the first place." You remember how cold it got before that. You remember crying with the phone on silent, checking for messages that never came, watching your phone light up with everything but what you needed. You remember holding yourself down when it felt like the whole damn world wanted to see you collapse. And yet, last night, when you weren't even watching, when you'd already given up on the idea that anybody would ever show up, someone did. They didn't just stand for you. They stood for the version of you that had been buried under betrayal. The one too exhausted to even ask for help. The one who forgot that being chosen doesn't always come with a warning. You never saw it coming. And that's what makes it real. It wasn't staged. It wasn't curated. It was raw. It was instinct. It was loyalty in its purest form. That kind of loyalty demands transformation, not just in how you see them, but in how you see yourself. Because once someone risks their peace for your protection, you stop treating yourself like a side character in everyone else's story. You become the main event. You become the axis. You become the standard by which all future connections will be measured. And once you felt that kind of force behind your name, you stop entertaining anything that feels halfway. Half-truths, half-friends, half-love. You stop answering the door to energy that doesn't match that same war-ready loyalty. Because that one moment cracked the dam. It made you realize just how long you've been operating at a deficit. Emotionally underfed, spiritually overdrawn, carrying people who would drop you the second you stopped being convenient. And still, you stayed solid, even when they let you bleed out, even when they blamed you for the wounds they caused, even when they threw dirt on your name hoping it would bury you. not knowing you were the seed the whole damn time. And then someone came along and watered that seed, not with sweet words or empty promises, but with action, real, unfiltered, unshakable. They didn't hesitate, they didn't stutter, they just saw you getting dragged and stepped in like, fuck that. You're not doing this to them. And when that happens, your whole chemistry changes. Your aura shifts. You stop begging people to stay. You stop chasing closure. You stop tiptoeing around your own strength just to keep fragile egos from cracking. Because the moment someone chooses your chaos, your mess, your mood swings, your overthinking, your depth, your shadows, and they don't just tolerate it, they defend it, that's when you realize you were never hard to love. You were just surrounded by cowards. The kind of cowards who wanted access to your fire but couldn't handle the heat. The kind who called your passion too much because they lacked it themselves. The kind who stood silent when the lies hit the air, even though they knew the truth. But not this one, not the one who showed up. They didn't just hold your name. They carried it like a weapon, like it meant something, like it deserved armor. And that's the moment you stop asking, what did I do to deserve this? And start saying, of course, they fought for me. I've been worth fighting for the whole time. You remember the nights you showed up for people who forgot you existed when their season changed. You remember how many times you stitched yourself up in silence because asking for help felt like weakness. You remember walking through hell with a smile just to keep everyone else from falling apart. And maybe you forgot what that made you. Maybe the weight made you forget you were a force. But they didn't. The one who stepped up. They saw the gravity in you. They saw what the world couldn't handle about you and said, that's exactly why I'm standing up. It's not about returning the favor. It's about rising into the version of yourself that no longer begs to be seen. The version that doesn't chase acceptance. The version that doesn't dumb down their rage just to sound palatable. The version that knows, without doubt, without apology, without shrinkage, that you are not just chosen, you are protected. And that protection, it does something violent to the version of you that used to keep quiet just to be kept around. It buries them, no ceremony, no funeral. Just silence, then evolution. Because the second you realize someone was willing to stand in the crossfire without you even asking, you stop romanticizing survival. You stop wearing humility like a muzzle. You stop seeing your wounds as liabilities and start treating them like proof of life. You don't get soft after that. You get surgical, precise, unforgiving with your time. You start filtering people by energy, by action, by who shows up when your name's in the mud, not just when it's glowing on a good day. You stop explaining your intensity. You stop dialing it down to make the room more comfortable. Because that one act, that unexpected, unprovoked, real loyalty, it reminded you that there's nothing wrong with being hard to swallow. You weren't built to go down easy. You weren't designed to blend in. You were made to stand out so violently that it either inspires the real ones or offends the fake ones. You start to remember what it felt like to believe in your own story, not the edited version, but the raw cut. The messy, loud, gritty, brilliant version you've been hiding under social cues and polite filters. Because the person who stood for you, they didn't defend the image, they defended the real you, the version even you tried to bury just to make life easier for everyone else. You begin to treat your presence like it costs something, because it does. You're not just energy anymore. Your legacy, built from silence, forged through abandonment. and confirmed the second someone threw a punch with your name on their breath. There's a different type of fire that comes from being underestimated too long, from being written off, from being talked about like you're disposable, until someone out of nowhere shows up and flips the table, and suddenly everyone's watching like, wait, they're worth that much to someone? Yeah, you are. You always were. But people only value what others are willing to protect. And last night, you got proof. Live, direct, and loud. Someone pulled up for your spirit like it was gold. And in that moment, you remembered. You're not just someone who survived betrayal. You're someone who provokes loyalty without even trying. Hello, you beautiful, dangerous storm of a soul. You ever look around and wonder how the hell you're still standing? Like, really? After everything? After all the shit they threw at you? After the betrayals, the silence, the fake friends, the heavy nights where you stared at the ceiling, wondering if it was even worth waking up again? Yeah, I know you. I see you. The world tried to break you into something quiet, digestible, predictable, and you said no. You didn't just survive. You twisted survival into a weapon. And then, that move happened. You know the one I'm talking about. That one moment, that one insane, reckless, zero guaranteed decision. The one that made no logical sense to anyone but you. The one where everyone said, "You're gonna ruin everything." The one you made with trembling hands and a fuck-it heartbeat. That was the exact moment you stopped being background noise in your own goddamn life. That's when you became legendary. See, legends aren't born. They're carved out of scars and silence and rage, out of loss so deep it caves in your thickened chest, out of cold, lonely rooms where no one claps for you. That move, the one that felt like suicide to your comfort zone, that's where it all shifted. You bent reality. You broke their rules. You left their playbook in flames. Because you realized one simple truth. No one is coming to crown you. You had to steal the throne. And ya fucking did. You stopped asking for permission. You stopped explaining your worth. You stopped waiting for applause from people who couldn't even handle their own demons. You stood the hell up, took that madness living inside your chest, and weaponized it. You want to know why it worked? Because you were done. Done pretending. Done playing nice. Done watering yourself down just to fit in with plastic-ass people with cardboard dreams and duct-taped dignity. You made that move because something deep inside you snapped. Not the kind of snapping that breaks you, the kind that frees you. You stopped giving a damn how loud you had to get. You stopped shrinking. And when you moved, the world shook. You weren't supposed to win. You weren't supposed to survive. Hell, you weren't even supposed to try. They wanted you bitter, broke, busy hating yourself into a box. But then you came in like a glitch in their system. That move, it wasn't just action, it was annihilation. You nuked the version of you that begged for crumbs. You chose chaos over comfort. You lit the bridge while still crossing it. You dared to say, if this ship sinks, I'll learn to breathe underwater. And you did. They still talk about you, you know, in whispers, in warning. You became the story people tell when they think about the one who escaped the maze, when they wonder if they could ever do something that insane, that bold, that real. You became proof that it's possible, that someone can say, I'm not playing this sick game anymore, and actually win. And now they don't look you in the eyes. They don't ask questions, because deep down, they know. They felt the aftershock of your rise. That wasn't luck. That wasn't a trend. That was war. You declared it. You ended it. You won. And here's the twist they never saw coming. You didn't just do it for you. You did it for every version of you that cried in silence. Every night you questioned your worth. Every time you swallowed your rage just to keep the peace. Every time you were overlooked, underestimated, or straight up disrespected. That move, it wasn't just strategic, it was spiritual. It was your resurrection. So now, here you are, unapologetic, unmatched, unfuckwithable. They thought that move would kill you. Instead, it made you. You didn't rise clean. You clawed your way out of the wreckage, bleeding, laughing, teeth bared, flipping off every single lie they ever tried to bury you with. You were not handed peace. You ripped it from the jaws of chaos. And the best part? They still don't know how you pulled it off. You weren't the loudest. You weren't the favorite. You weren't on anyone's fucking radar, but you knew something they didn't. You knew what pain tastes like, what silence feels like, what it's like to stand in a room full of people and still feel invisible. You took all of that and weaponized it with one move so goddamn surgical. It left the whole game glitching. People see you now and think you're lucky, as if this shat just happened to you, as if that move wasn't sleepless nights and sick to your stomach doubt, as if it didn't cost you friendships, your sanity, your fucking peace of mind. They see the fire but ignore the ashes. They don't know what it took for you to become this version of yourself, the one who doesn't flinch anymore, doesn't beg, doesn't wait. You are the result of every no, every slammed door, every breakdown you dragged yourself out of, without a single hand reaching back for you. You were forged, not born, in the worst parts of life. You didn't come out with a silver spoon or a blueprint. You figured shit out while everything around you was on fire. And when people walked away, you didn't chase. You closed your eyes, clenched your jaw, and whispered, "Let the motherfuckers go." Because the realest thing you ever learned is this: not everyone can handle evolution. You leveled up in silence while they kept refreshing their feeds for validation. And then, boom, you dropped that move, that cold, calm, chess player move, while they were all still playing checkers. You didn't announce it. You didn't warn anyone. You just made it. Quietly, deadly. Like a switch flipped and you finally said, "I'm done bleeding for people who'd never even hand me a bandage." That's when the energy changed. That's when you became untouchable. Not because you're invincible, but because you've already been through what they're afraid of. You know what real loss tastes like. What it means to be the only one in your corner, screaming through your own doubt just to keep breathing. That kind of experience. It builds a different beast. You became the type of person who doesn't fold under pressure. They become pressure. You walk into rooms now, and it's not arrogance, it's evidence. Evidence that pain can evolve into power, that fear can grow fangs, that silence can be louder than applause when it comes from a place of knowing you're enough, even when nobody else clapped. That move, that wild, unpredictable, logic-defying move, they'll never understand it, because it wasn't about strategy. It was about liberation. You reached a point where failure wasn't even the worst outcome anymore. Staying the same was. You were willing to risk everything just to never feel that small again. That's what makes people dangerous. Not confidence, not talent. Hunger. Raw, ruthless, fire in your chest hunger. The kind of hunger that turns, maybe someday, into watch this. And the second you moved with that kind of hunger, the universe flinched. Everything started to bend. People switched up. Reality cracked open. Because when you finally believe in yourself louder than the world doubts you, that's when the unthinkable starts to look like destiny. That's when you stop auditioning and start owning every room you step into. You don't need them to get it. You don't need them to agree. You became the thing they said wasn't possible. And that shit didn't happen by accident. You didn't wait for green lights, for permission, for someone to hand you the map. You built the damn road with your bare hands, bleeding knuckles and all. And while they were out there second-guessing themselves, stalling, tweaking their little plans for approval, you were in the trenches executing. You weren't chasing aesthetics, you were chasing freedom. And that move you made, it wasn't pretty, it wasn't polished. It was raw, reckless, borderline insane, and it was exactly what was needed. You didn't have a backup plan. You didn't have the luxury of cushion or comfort. You had pressure. You had rage. You had nothing left to lose. That's why it worked. Because it came from the part of you that doesn't blink, that doesn't break, that doesn't ask nicely. The part of you that got tired of being the one carrying everyone else while no one ever showed up for you. And that's the part they underestimated. You see, most people operate from fear, from approval, from safety. But you moved from fire, from knowing too much, from being let down one too many times. And when you finally hit that breaking point, the real one, not the dramatic fake social media meltdown bullshit, but the private, eyes red, cold floor, this can't be my life kind of breaking point. That's when something ancient cracked open in you. That's when you became dangerous, because nothing's scarier than a person who no longer needs anything from the people who tried to break them. That move, you didn't even realize it at the time, but you were signing off from the old version of you. You were done playing roles, done saying yes to eshti that drained your soul, done carrying guilt for simply wanting more. You didn't just shift lanes. You built a whole new freeway, tore through every wall they tried to box you into. And when the dust settled, you weren't asking who approved. You were too busy being the standard. The move wasn't just tactical, it was spiritual warfare. It was years of silencing yourself, finally erupting into one act of unfiltered defiance. The kind of act that doesn't need words, because your existence after that was the mic drop. Every breath you took after that, proof that you could walk through fire and come out smirking, that you could tank every betrayal, every fake friend, every fucked up detour, and still make power moves with blood on your shoes and purpose in your eyes. You weren't supposed to survive that season. You weren't supposed to recover, rebuild, rise. But that move rewrote the whole narrative. It cracked something wide open in you. Something primal, that savage, I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees version of you. The version they couldn't domesticate, the version they couldn't dilute. That's who made the move. That's who stepped forward and said, if I go down, it'll be swinging. And ever since that moment, you haven't been the same. There's something in your energy now, untamed, unbothered, unshakable. You don't need to prove shit. You are the proof. The walking contradiction of every prediction made against you. Every time they counted you out, they forgot. You don't fold. You fecking morph. Pain didn't break you. It built you. And that move, that was your masterpiece. Not because it was flawless, but because it was fearless. You didn't ask for validation after that move. You became validation. Every room you walk into carries the echo of that decision. People can feel it before you speak. It's in your posture, in your silence, in your refusal to shrink ever again. That energy. It's not loud for attention. It's loud with intention. The kind of loud that makes the air heavier when you step in. The kind that makes people fix their tone when they talk to you. Because even if they don't know the details, they know. Something in you doesn't play by their rules anymore. You became the person who doesn't just survive storms, you bring them. You don't run from chaos because you are chaos when necessary. Not out of anger, not out of ego, but because you've seen what happens when you stay quiet too long, when you hold it all in, when you smile just to keep the peace while you die a little on the inside. You're not doing that eshti anymore. That move was your line in the sand, that never again kind of line. The kind that turns soft people savage and sleepers into sharks. You don't fake strength, you carry it. Not in your words, but in your scars. In the way you kept showing up when everything inside you said, give up. In the way you stitched yourself back together without asking for applause. In the way you kept pushing when the weight should have crushed you. That move wasn't random. It was earned. Every part of it. Every risk. Every night you couldn't sleep. Every doubt screaming in your head. Every flash of panic you had to fight through to act like you were fine. And what they didn't see, what they still don't get, is that the real move wasn't just external. It wasn't just the action. It was internal detonation. You detonated the old you. The one who used to wait, who used to explain, who used to hope someone would come save you. You buried that version. Deep, with no headstone. And what rose after? That was a whole different breed. That was the version that doesn't ask if it's allowed to want more. That doesn't flinch when the ground shakes. That doesn't second-guess every damn instinct just to be palatable to people too weak to look their own reflection in the eye. You became the consequence of every person who underestimated you. The walking receipt for every time they said, "You'll never pull it off." The irony. You weren't even trying to prove them wrong anymore. You just got tired of proving yourself right and still playing small. That move was the release. That was the final, "Fuck this, I'm not living like this anymore," that made everything snap into place. And once it did, you stopped fighting the storm and started being it. You don't carry regret for that move. You carry proof. Proof that pressure doesn't crush everyone. Some people crystallize under it. Some people get sharper, colder, more precise. And you became the blade. The kind that doesn't flash or flex, but cuts clean through anything in the way. That moment rewired your instincts. It turned hesitation into reflex, fear into fuel, doubt into data. You started clocking patterns, watching energies, reading intentions like subtitles. Because once you've walked through fire, you stop pretending smoke doesn't mean something's burning. That move peeled the softness off your spirit. You stopped dressing your truth up to make other people comfortable. You stopped over-explaining your boundaries, stopped sugarcoating your ambition, stopped pretending you didn't feel the hunger in your gut every damn morning. You let that version of you die, the one who thought being liked was more important than being real. You stood over your own ashes and rebuilt from bone. No fluff, no filters, just grit, vision, and this venom in your chest that keeps whispering, make them remember who the fuck you are. And the crazy part is, it wasn't even about revenge. That move, it wasn't for them. It wasn't to flex on the ones who left or prove shitty to the ones who doubted. It was for you. For the kid who got overlooked. For the teenager who swallowed every scream. For the adult version of you who sat in a bathroom stall, holding it together by a thread while pretending everything was fine. That move was the moment you finally said, "I'm done suffering quietly." That wasn't rebellion. That was resurrection. You gave up waiting for the perfect time, the perfect mood, the perfect plan. You moved messy, fast, wild, and it worked because it was honest. That shet came from the soul. It wasn't clean, it wasn't calculated, but it was realer than anything you'd ever done. You stopped trying to be digestible to people who choke on their own dreams. You made a choice. You said, if I'm gonna risk something, it's not gonna be my peace, my dignity, or my potential anymore. That's why it hit different. That's why everything changed after. And now, you don't beg, you don't chase, you don't try to convince people of your worth. You exist, and that's enough. The silence you used to hate, you wear it like armor now. The solitude, it's your breeding ground. That version of you, the one born after the move, doesn't flinch when shit gets cold. You adapt, you strategize, you multiply in the dark. You became the kind of person who can't be threatened with loss because you already rebuilt yourself from ruins. You don't flinch when things fall apart anymore. You analyze. You look at the chaos, the smoke, the wreckage, and you start calculating. Not because you're cold, but because you've already been through worse. You've already lost things you thought would kill you to let go of, and here you are. Clearer, harder, more dangerous. That move wasn't about being fearless. It was about being done with letting fear run the show. You felt the fear, gritted your teeth, and moved through it anyway. That's the shit they don't teach you. That's the part they skip in the feel-good stories. You didn't level up on accident. You bled for that growth. Every inch of progress has pain behind it. Nights with no sleep. Days with no motivation. Conversations where you had to bite your tongue so hard it tasted like metal. That move was the beginning of your emotional detachment arc. Not because you stopped caring, but because you stopped caring for free. You stopped giving your energy to black holes. You stopped explaining your fire to people who only show up with buckets of water. People still wonder what changed. They can't quite name it, but they feel it. They sense that edge in your tone, that calm in your chaos, that quiet rage behind your smile. You used to panic when things went off script. Now you expect it. You used to fight to be heard. Now your silence shakes shit harder than your words ever could. That move broke something, yeah, but not in a bad way. It broke the illusion, the trap, the fake peace, the people-pleasing, the waiting room mindset. It shattered every part of you that used to hold back just to make other people feel comfortable in your presence. You walk different after that. You enter a room like gravity follows you. Not because you're trying to intimidate anyone, but because you finally belong to yourself. You know what it costs to doubt yourself. You've already paid that tax with years of delay, anxiety, second guessing. That's done. You trust your gut now, even when it doesn't make sense to anyone else. Because you've seen what happens when you don't, when you ignore that inner voice to play it safe, to keep the peace, to stay likable. And all it ever got you was resentment and wasted time. That move was the first real yes you ever gave to yourself. And once you tasted what it felt like to be fully in your own corner, you weren't going back. You weren't apologizing for being intense, for dreaming bigger, for loving harder, for cutting shit off faster. You weren't interested in explaining to anyone why your standards went from floor level to untouchable. Because that version of you, the one who made the move, they don't negotiate with weakness. They don't argue with mediocrity. They just get up, fix their stare, and keep building. You don't explain your distance anymore. You earned your space. You learned the difference between being alone and being at peace, between being left behind and walking ahead. That move taught you how to isolate without feeling abandoned, how to detach without turning numb, how to protect your energy without throwing guilt on top of it like a weighted blanket. People don't get it because they never had to claw their way out of a version of themselves that was killing them softly. But you did. You buried that version with your own hands and didn't leave flowers, just silence. Just a door with no handle. You stopped reaching out to people who never reached back. You stopped softening your tone just to avoid making others uncomfortable. You stopped asking if your ambition was too much. That move made you realize the only people who ever said too much were the ones who gave up on themselves and couldn't stand to watch you not fold. And that realization hit harder than any heartbreak. You started seeing patterns, seeing through people. That shift in you wasn't attitude, it was awareness, hyper-awareness of who drains you, who delays you, who disappears when shit isn't easy. You became allergic to small talk and fake energy.